The universal keys to relationship success, unlocking better connections in every area of life. Introduction. Can one approach truly enhance all your relationships? Whether it's with romantic partners, friends, co-workers, family, or children, the idea of a relationship cure may seem overly simplistic. Yet, while there isn't a one-size-fits-all magic pill, there are universal strategies that can significantly improve how we interact with those around us. These principles, rooted in extensive research, offer practical insights that can transform the way we connect and communicate. The hidden messages in everyday communication. Have you ever wondered about the hidden messages behind simple interactions? Our everyday acts of communication often carry deeper meanings that influence our relationships. The single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place, said George Bernard Shaw. By learning to decode these messages, we can respond more effectively and build stronger bonds. Understanding these nuances is the first step towards enhancing our interactions with others. Responding to build closer relationships. Once we recognize the underlying messages in communication, the next step is knowing how to respond. It's not just about what we say but how we say it. As Maya Angelou wisely noted, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. By responding with empathy and understanding, we can create a positive impact on those around us, fostering closer and more meaningful relationships. The Love Lab, a scientific approach. What happens when you take a scientific approach to studying relationships? One of the authors of this groundbreaking work built a place called the Love Lab, where researchers observed couples and their interactions. The insights gained from this environment have been invaluable. By analyzing patterns and behaviors, researchers were able to identify key strategies that can improve relationship dynamics across different types of connections. Applying universal principles to diverse relationships. While the specifics of how we apply these strategies may vary, the underlying principles remain consistent. Whether you're dealing with a romantic partner or a co-worker, the same foundational techniques can be adapted to suit the situation. This universality is what makes the strategies so powerful. By focusing on core principles like empathy, active listening, and effective communication, we can enhance our interactions in any context. Practical strategies for everyday use. So, what are these practical strategies? One crucial approach is making bids for connection, as identified in the Love Lab studies. These bids are attempts to get attention, affirmation, or affection from others. How we respond to these bids can either strengthen or weaken our relationships. By being more aware of these moments and responding positively, we can nurture and grow our connections with others. Conclusion: transforming your relationships. In conclusion, while there's no instant fix for all relationship issues, the strategies outlined in this research provide a solid foundation for improving interactions in every area of life. By understanding the hidden messages in communication, responding with empathy, and applying universal principles, we can transform our relationships for the better. As you embark on this journey, remember the words of John C. Maxwell: people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Start caring, start understanding, and watch your relationships flourish. Questions and answers. Q. Can these strategies really work for all types of relationships? A. Yes, while the specifics may vary, the underlying principles of empathy, effective communication, and understanding hidden messages can be applied to any type of relationship. Q. What is a bid for connection? A bid for connection is an attempt to get attention, affirmation, or affection from others. Recognizing and responding positively to these bids can significantly strengthen relationships. Q. Is there scientific evidence supporting these strategies? A. Absolutely. The strategies are based on extensive research, including observations and studies conducted in the Love Lab, where couples' interactions were meticulously analyzed to identify what works and what doesn't. Why should you listen to this audiobook or the authors? John M. Gottman is a distinguished research and clinical psychologist with over 40 years of expertise. He holds the title of Professor Emeritus at the University of Washington. Alongside his wife, he co-founded the Gottman Institute, an organization dedicated to training therapists and applying his research-based principles. Gottman has authored or co-authored over 190 academic papers and 40 books, including the New York Times bestseller, The 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work. Joan DeClaire serves as the Director of Communications at the Kaiser Permanente Washington Health Research Institute. With 3 decades of experience, she excels at translating health and psychology research for the public. DeClaire has co-authored 2 other books with John M. Gottman, the heart of parenting and raising an emotionally intelligent child. The true foundation of close relationships. It's not about simply opening up. What's the secret to having a happy, healthy, and close relationship with another person? Many believe that forming a close relationship hinges on a willingness to share your deepest, most personal thoughts, feelings, and experiences. This was a common belief among psychologists in the early 1990s, including Dr. John Gottman. However, his research yielded surprising results that challenged this notion. The key message. The key message here is, people don't form close relationships by simply opening up to each other. The Love Lab experiment. In 1990, Dr. John Gottman and his colleagues at the University of Washington created an innovative research center known as the Love Lab. It resembled a normal studio apartment, complete with a kitchen, dining area, hideaway bed, TV, and scenic waterfront views. Over a year, 60 married couples were invited to spend a weekend in this cozy setting, instructed only to live as they normally would. Behind the scenes. However, there was a twist. The apartment was equipped with 4 surveillance cameras and a two-way mirror, allowing observers to watch the couples for 12 hours a day. Additionally, the participants wore microphones and body sensors to monitor stress indicators like heart rate and sweat levels. Analyzing interactions. Dr. Gottman meticulously reviewed hundreds of hours of video footage, hoping to find instances of partners baring their souls to one another. To his surprise, he found very few examples of what psychologists term self-disclosure. Instead, most conversations were mundane. "Honey, could you grab me a cup of coffee?" "Yes, dear." Or, "Hey, check out this comic strip. I'm trying to read." A revelatory insight. At first, Dr. Gottman thought the experiment had been futile. However, after months of reviewing the footage, he noticed something crucial. The key to forming close relationships was evident in those seemingly banal conversations. The important factor wasn't what the couples were discussing, but how they were communicating with each other. The lesson. This revelation highlighted a vital lesson: the quality of interactions, characterized by attentiveness, responsiveness, and emotional engagement, is what truly strengthens relationships. This principle applies not only to romantic relationships but to all types of relationships, demonstrating that meaningful connections are built through everyday moments of interaction and mutual understanding. Understanding bids and emotional communication. The subtle power of bids. A wife asking her husband to get her a cup of coffee might seem mundane, but how he responds can speak volumes about their relationship. Imagine if, instead of saying "Sure, honey," the husband snapped, "Go get it yourself." The difference between these responses can drastically affect the emotional atmosphere in a relationship. The core of emotional communication. The key message here is, bids are the most fundamental units of emotional communication. Defining bids. According to the authors, a bid is any attempt to establish an emotional connection with someone through verbal or nonverbal communication. It can be a question like, "Hey, did you see the game last night?" An exclamation such as "Wow, look at that sunset." A gesture like offering someone a chair, or even a facial expression like a smile. Despite the varied forms, all bids carry the same underlying message: "Hey, I want to connect with you." Responses to bids. When someone makes a bid, the response can take one of 3 forms: turning toward, turning away, or turning against. For example, imagine you've read an interesting news article and want to share it with a friend. You say, "Hey, check this out." This is your bid. If your friend puts down their phone and cheerfully asks, "What's up?" they are turning towards your bid, responding positively to your attempt to connect. Ignoring or sidestepping bids. Conversely, if your friend continues staring at their phone or changes the subject, they are turning away from your bid by ignoring or sidestepping it. This response can create a sense of disconnection or disregard. Negative responses. Finally, if your friend responds negatively by saying, "Ugh, can't you see I'm in the middle of something?" they are turning against your bid. Such a reaction can be damaging and create emotional distance. The impact on relationships. Dr. Gottman's research revealed that these bids and the corresponding responses are fundamental building blocks of emotional communication and human connection. How we handle these interactions can significantly influence the strength and health of our relationships. Recognizing and positively responding to bids can foster closeness and understanding, while ignoring or responding negatively can weaken bonds. By understanding and mastering the art of making and responding to bids, we can create more fulfilling and resilient relationships. Unveiling hidden messages in bids. The subtlety of small talk. How's your day going? And do you have any plans this evening? Might seem like trivial questions, but as bids to establish emotional connections, they play a crucial role in shaping our relationships. These questions often contain deeper meanings that are not immediately obvious. The key message. The key message is, bids usually contain hidden messages. Deciphering the hidden messages. Consider a couple, Mary and Jeff, sitting on a sofa in their living room. Mary leans over to Jeff and says, "It's a bit chilly in here, don't you think?" This simple statement is actually Mary's bid for connection. To understand its hidden message, we need to look beneath the surface. Mary is not just commenting on the temperature, she's subtly asking for a cuddle, hoping Jeff will move closer to her both physically and emotionally. The reason for subtlety. Why doesn't Mary simply ask for a cuddle? While sometimes we do make overt bids, we usually frame them more subtly and vaguely. This approach allows us to protect ourselves from potential rejection. If Mary directly asked for a cuddle and Jeff bluntly refused, it would be hurtful. By framing her request as a comment about the temperature, she mitigates the risk of outright rejection. Interpreting responses. If Jeff responds by tossing Mary a blanket, she doesn't get the cuddle she desires, but she receives a positive response, which is better than rejection. This subtlety also gives Jeff a way to decline the bid without awkwardness. Even if he understands that Mary wants a cuddle, he can choose to interpret her statement literally and respond accordingly. The function of vagueness. The vagueness in our bids is intentional and often beneficial. It allows both parties to navigate social interactions smoothly, avoiding direct confrontation and potential embarrassment. However, this subtlety can also lead to misunderstandings and missed connections. The implications. Understanding that bids often contain hidden messages can help us respond more thoughtfully and empathetically in our relationships. Recognizing the underlying intent behind seemingly trivial comments or questions can improve communication and strengthen emotional bonds. By being aware of the hidden messages in bids, we can foster more meaningful connections and avoid the pitfalls of misinterpretation. Interpreting and responding to hidden messages in bids. The complexity of bids. While some bids are straightforward, like "it's a bit chilly in here, don't you think?" not all are easy to interpret. Understanding the hidden messages behind bids can be challenging, and misinterpreting them can strain relationships. The key message. The key message here is, the hidden messages of bids can be hard to interpret, so respond to them carefully. Unexpressed feelings and desires. We all have feelings and desires that we struggle to express constructively. If we don't fully understand our own emotions, it's reasonable to assume we'll have difficulty communicating them to others. This complexity makes it essential to respond to bids thoughtfully. Misinterpreted bids. Consider a child throwing a tantrum because her father refuses to buy her a toy. While the tantrum might seem like an expression of anger, it could also be a bid for her father's comfort. Similarly, when a husband asks his wife, "Why don't you ever call me when you're at work?" it's not just an accusation, it's a poorly expressed bid for more communication. Recognizing underlying emotions. Bids often come in the form of laments, criticisms, or complaints, especially when they involve feelings of sadness, anger, or fear. These negative expressions can make the underlying bid difficult to recognize and respond to effectively. The key is to look beneath the surface of what the other person is saying to understand their true emotional needs. Responding thoughtfully. Imagine you are the father or wife in these examples. Instead of defensively explaining why you won't buy the toy, you could give the child a hug and acknowledge her need for comfort. Similarly, instead of telling your husband you're too busy to call, you could arrange a set time to touch base during the day, acknowledging his need for communication. Building connections. By focusing on the underlying bid, you're more likely to respond in a way that builds connections. Turning toward the bid, rather than away from or against it, fosters a deeper emotional bond. Understanding and responding to the hidden messages in bids can transform interactions and strengthen relationships. Practical application. In everyday life, recognizing the hidden messages in bids and responding with empathy and understanding can significantly enhance your relationships. Whether it's a child's tantrum or a partner's complaint, looking beyond the surface to address the underlying emotional needs is key to building stronger, more connected relationships. Understanding the roots of emotional bids. The complexity of unmet needs. Bids often arise from unmet emotional needs and desires that may be unclear even to the person making them. Understanding these bids can be challenging without deeper insight into the individual's emotional makeup. The key message. The key message here is, to understand people's bids, it helps to know where they're coming from. The impact of emotional heritage. Consider Rick and Sarah, a couple in therapy with Dr. Gottman. Rick's childhood was marred by his mother's abandonment and his grandmother's harsh treatment, which left him with fragile self-esteem. This emotional baggage affected his relationship with Sarah. Whenever Sarah complained about his behavior, Rick perceived it as a personal attack, hearing echoes of his grandmother's voice telling him he was worthless. The role of past experiences. Sarah, on the other hand, grew up in a poor family as one of 7 siblings, where she was taught to suppress her personal needs. This background led her to bottle up her frustrations in her relationship with Rick until they erupted into a series of complaints. In the case of the TV, Sarah wanted a closer connection with Rick but expressed her desire in a way that seemed bitter and accusatory. Emotional heritage. We all carry emotional baggage from past relationships into our present interactions. This emotional heritage influences how we communicate and respond to others, often subconsciously. By understanding someone's background, we can better interpret their bids and respond more empathetically. Practical application. Imagine you're in Rick or Sarah's position. Knowing Rick's history, Sarah might understand why he reacts defensively to her complaints. She could approach him with more sensitivity, acknowledging his feelings of inadequacy. Conversely, Rick could recognize that Sarah's outbursts stem from her upbringing and her deep-seated need for connection, prompting him to respond with more understanding and patience. Enhancing communication. By learning about someone's emotional heritage, you gain valuable insights into their behavior and communication patterns. This knowledge enables you to interpret their bids more accurately and respond in ways that build trust and intimacy. Strengthening relationships. Understanding where someone is coming from emotionally allows you to navigate complex interactions more effectively. It helps you see beyond the surface-level complaints or criticisms to the underlying needs and desires. This deeper understanding fosters stronger, more resilient relationships, enhancing your ability to connect with others on a meaningful level. Reflecting and expressing your underlying needs with soft language. Recapping the fundamentals. We've learned that simple interactions often serve as bids for emotional connection. These bids contain hidden messages, and these underlying meanings are shaped by one's emotional heritage and past relationships. Understanding these principles can help you respond to others more constructively. The key message. The key message here is, when making bids, reflect on your underlying needs, and express them through soft language. Understanding your needs. When making a bid, it's crucial to understand your underlying emotional needs. Before launching into an argument or complaint, pause and ask yourself, what's my unmet emotional need here? Often, these needs are rooted in fundamental human impulses, such as the need for safety or connection. Expressing needs clearly. For instance, if a wife is concerned about her husband buying a firearm for their home, her underlying need might be to ensure the safety of their children. Instead of making a broad statement about the dangers of guns, she should express her specific fear. By articulating her concern, the couple can address it directly and find a compromise, such as securing the gun in a lockbox. Softening your language. Using soft language when making bids can also make them more palatable. Consider an example involving one of the authors. He wanted his wife, Julie, to stop working and join the family for dinner. Instead of harshly shouting, "Stop working. It's family time," which made Julie feel attacked, he could have said, "Hey, Julie, we miss you. Come up and have dinner with us as soon as you can." This softer approach would likely have resulted in a more positive response. Practical application. The next time you feel the urge to argue or complain, take a moment to identify your underlying need. Express this need clearly and gently. Instead of saying, "You never listen to me," try, "I feel unheard and would appreciate it if we could talk." This approach not only helps in getting your point across but also fosters a more receptive and understanding response from the other person. Enhancing communication. Reflecting on your needs and using soft language can transform how you communicate your bids. It helps prevent misunderstandings and reduces the likelihood of defensive reactions. This thoughtful approach to communication enhances emotional connections and fosters healthier relationships. Building stronger bonds. By understanding and articulating your needs with kindness and clarity, you can create a more supportive and empathetic environment. This practice strengthens your relationships, making it easier to navigate conflicts and deepen your emotional bonds with others. Maximizing connection through effective bids and responses. The importance of initial interaction. The initial bid and bid response are crucial in emotional communication, akin to the serve and return in a tennis match. If these early exchanges are mishandled, they can derail the opportunity for connection. However, if executed well, they set the stage for deeper interaction and bonding. The key message. The key message here is, if you get your initial bid and bid response right, you give yourself more opportunity for connection. A real-world example. Consider the interaction between two co-workers, Jim and Linda. Jim initiates contact with a simple bid, "So, do you have any plans for lunch?" Linda, understanding the intent behind the bid, responds positively, "Want to join me?" This initial positive response invites further interaction. Jim then builds on this by making another bid, "I'm going to the vending machine to get a drink. Want anything?" Linda again responds positively, "Yeah, maybe a Coke. Oh, and I'll find those photos I told you about. I want to show them to you." The interaction between Jim and Linda is characterized by a series of positive exchanges, each building on the previous one. This creates a connection that fosters a deeper relationship, as seen when they end up enjoying each other's company and sharing personal photos. The impact of negative responses. Now, imagine a different scenario. Jim asks Linda, "Do you have any plans for lunch?" Linda responds with irritation, "Lunch? In this office? Who's got the time?" And continues working without acknowledging Jim's bid. This negative response stifles any potential for connection, leaving Jim feeling rejected and the conversation effectively over. The ripple effect of bids. The way initial bids and responses are handled can significantly influence the course of a relationship. Positive responses build momentum, creating opportunities for more meaningful interactions. Conversely, negative or dismissive responses can abruptly end the chance for connection and potentially harm the relationship. Building stronger relationships. Effective communication through positive bids and responses encourages ongoing interaction and connection. By approaching bids with openness and understanding, you foster a positive atmosphere that strengthens relationships and creates opportunities for further bonding. The bigger picture. Understanding and responding to bids thoughtfully can transform everyday interactions and relationships. It underscores the importance of the initial exchange in setting the tone for future communication, making it crucial to approach these moments with care and empathy. Responding positively without accepting bids at face value. Navigating bid responses. You might worry that you have to accept every bid, like a lunch invitation, to avoid harming your relationships. The good news is, this isn't the case. You can respond positively to bids while still declining requests you can't or don't want to fulfill. The key is in how you handle your response. The key message. The key message here is, you don't have to accept a bid at face value to respond positively. A practical example. Let's revisit Jim and Linda's lunch plans. Suppose Linda is swamped with work and can't take a lunch break that day. Instead of outright rejecting Jim's bid or appearing uninterested, she could respond positively in another way. She might say, "I'd really love to have lunch with you, but I'm too busy right now. How about we meet for coffee after work, or perhaps tomorrow?" Affirming connection. By expressing her desire to connect while offering alternative solutions, Linda affirms her interest in maintaining a relationship with Jim. This approach keeps the connection open, even if she can't accept the bid in its original form. It shows that she values Jim's offer and wants to find another way to interact. Offering alternatives. Jim, in turn, can respond to Linda's suggestion by agreeing to a different plan, such as meeting for coffee or bringing her something to eat. This keeps the communication positive and ongoing, allowing them to maintain their connection despite the initial bid not being accepted as proposed. The tennis analogy. Think of it like a tennis game. You don't have to hit the ball back exactly as it was served. You can respond in a way that keeps the game going. By acknowledging and turning towards the bid, even if you can't fully accept it, you keep the friendly communication alive and constructive. Building relationships. This approach applies to any bid or request. Whether you're unable to fulfill the exact request or simply not interested, your positive response can reassure the other person of your willingness to connect. It helps maintain and build relationships, ensuring that your interactions remain open and respectful. Keeping communication flowing. Responding positively without accepting a bid at face value allows you to navigate social interactions gracefully. It helps you balance your own boundaries with the desire to stay connected, ensuring that relationships remain strong and dynamic. The long-term impact of bid responses on relationships. The cumulative effect of interactions. Reflect on your recent interactions. Did you turn toward, away from, or against someone's bid? While a single instance of response might not make or break a relationship, it's the cumulative pattern that has a significant impact over time. Each interaction builds up or wears down the bond you share with others. The key message. The key message here is, Our patterns of responding to people's bids can have a big impact on our relationships in the long run. Patterns over time. The way you respond to bids creates a pattern that influences the overall health of your relationships. If responses are consistently negative, relationships tend to deteriorate. Conversely, a pattern of positive responses fosters closer connections. For example, consistently turning toward bids, as Jim did with Linda, nurtures and strengthens relationships, while frequent negative responses can lead to distancing and conflict. The dual messages. Responses to bids send implicit messages. Turning toward a bid communicates appreciation and a desire to connect, reinforcing the positive aspects of the relationship. On the other hand, turning away from or against bids can unintentionally signal disregard or disapproval, potentially causing emotional hurt. The accumulation of impact. Over time, these patterns become ingrained. Positive responses build goodwill and trust, making it easier to navigate conflicts. Negative responses, if repeated, can lead the other person to feel unappreciated or unwanted, possibly leading them to withdraw or disengage from the relationship. Research findings. Research supports this perspective. In marriages approaching divorce, husbands often respond negatively to their wives' bids 82% of the time. In stable marriages, this figure drops to just 19%. This stark contrast highlights how ongoing negative responses can predict marital issues and how positive interactions contribute to relationship stability. Aiming for consistency. While perfection isn't necessary, aiming for consistent positive responses is crucial. The goal is not to get everything right all the time but to foster a generally positive pattern of interaction. This consistency helps build stronger, more resilient relationships that can withstand challenges and conflicts. Building stronger bonds. Ultimately, being mindful of your patterns and responding to bids can profoundly affect your relationships. By focusing on positive interactions and understanding the long-term effects of your responses, you can strengthen connections and foster healthier, more fulfilling relationships. The Relationship Cure, a path to stronger connections. Unveiling the bids. In every conversation and interaction, people are constantly making bids for emotional connection. These bids might not always be straightforward. They can come disguised as vague comments, subtle hints, or even criticisms. Recognizing these bids and interpreting their underlying messages is essential for nurturing meaningful relationships. As renowned psychologist John M. Gottman points out, the quality of our connections is the measure of our well-being. Understanding and responding to these subtle cues can greatly impact the depth and quality of our relationships. The impact of response patterns. Our responses to bids are not just isolated reactions, they form patterns that shape the trajectory of our relationships. Consistently turning toward bids with empathy and engagement fosters closeness and mutual respect. In contrast, turning away or against bids can create distance and lead to misunderstandings. These patterns accumulate over time, influencing how we feel about and connect with others. As Viktor Frankl wisely said, the ultimate freedom we have is the ability to choose how we respond. Our choices in responding to bids can significantly affect our relational dynamics. Taking action. To make a meaningful impact in your relationships, it's crucial to take action now. Small gestures, such as accepting an invitation or showing genuine interest in someone's feelings, might seem insignificant but can be the foundation for deeper connections. As the saying goes, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Each positive interaction is a building block towards stronger, more resilient relationships. Start today, and watch how these small efforts pave the way for profound and lasting bonds. The value of starting small. Don't underestimate the power of seemingly minor interactions. They contribute to the overall health of your relationships, laying the groundwork for trust and emotional closeness. Just as Rome wasn't built in a day, meaningful relationships are developed through consistent, positive interactions. As Mother Teresa wisely noted, not all of us can do great things. But we can do small things with great love. Embrace the small moments, and you'll see the cumulative effect of your efforts in strengthening your connections with others. A gratitude-filled milestone. I'm thrilled to share that we've hit the milestone of 1,000 subscribers. This achievement is a testament to your incredible support and engagement. We've come a long way together, and I'm deeply grateful for each and every one of you who has been a part of this journey. Your encouragement and feedback have been invaluable, and I promise to continue delivering insightful and engaging book content. Looking ahead. As we move forward, my goal is to reach an even broader audience and make a meaningful impact on millions. With your continued support, I'm confident that we can achieve this together. Thank you for being an essential part of this community. Your commitment and enthusiasm inspire me every day, and I'm excited about the future of our journey together. Conclusion. In conclusion, understanding and responding to emotional bids is a powerful way to strengthen and enrich our relationships. Remember that every small step you take today contributes to building lasting connections. For those interested in a deeper dive into the relationship cure, I'll be leaving a link in the description. Once again, thank you for your support, and here's to many more milestones and impactful connections ahead.